Chapter 21, Business Meetings in the Home. Hi, Mrs. Bean. Come in, Cassidy. We've been expecting you. Mrs. Bean stood back and gestured for me to walk through the door. She moved her arm exactly the same way Miss Melton Mowry did when she taught us how to greet people. Will I meet the third Bean tonight? I asked, trying to erase from my brain the image of Delton teaching his mom everything we learned in etiquette class. Oh, you must mean Dr. Bean. Yes, I'm sure he'll pop in to say hello. Standing in the Beans' hallway, all I could see was a lot of windows, some house plants with very good posture, and white carpeting in the hall and the living room. White carpeting would never fly in the Corcoran household. According to my dad, the way I tore through the house and with the chemicals Magda spilled, we should buy stock in OxyClean. I'm not sure it's proper that you go see Delton in his room, but if you're comfortable with that, Mrs. Bean looked up the stairs as if she wished she was the one being invited into Delton's room. I'm okay with it. I'm guessing, I pointed at the stairs. She nodded. Well, it's been really enjoyable chatting with you. Let's do this again soon, Mrs. Bean. Maybe a spot of tea. I thought about showing off my Irish brogue, but decided I'd better get down to business. Mrs. Bean covered her mouth to hide a mom giggle. Oh, Cassidy. I bounded up the stairs, taking two at a time. My politeness muscle only lasts for so long, and then I have to change locations. Stopping in front of a door with the name plaque Delton Bean on it, I noticed another sign hanging from the doorknob. It was like one you'd see on the door of a shop with the word open on one side. Before I knocked, I flipped it over, and yes, it said closed. Cassidy, is that you? Delton opened his door. What? Could you hear me breathing? I heard you stomping. Delton straightened the sign that read closed. Good. You flipped it over. He pulled me inside. So how come you're closed now? I had to work that out with my mother. Closed means that she is not to interrupt me. My therapist said a sign would help me articulate my boundaries. Your therapist? Yes, I see Mrs. Denon on a regular basis to work through my social anxiety and to help with my individuation. I pinched myself. Was I really standing in Delton Bean's bedroom? It looked like I imagined a mental ward would, one of those places where they took everything out so you can't commit suicide. The walls were painted white, the carpet was, surprise, white, and the bedspread was white. You're noticing the minimalist appearance of my room, aren't you? He asked me. I quick checked Delton's feet to see if he was wearing shoelaces, far and away the top choice for stringing yourself up in solitary confinement. He was in slippers. My mom thinks a blank canvas inspires creativity, but it's not as bad as it first appears. Delton walked over to some folding doors and pushed them open. There was a desk with a computer, some model airplanes on shelves, and Delton's clothes folded neatly in stacks. Look, he said, pointing to a pile of shoes on the floor. It's today's act of rebellion. You rebel with shoes? I landed with a bounce on Delton's bed, creating at least 100 wrinkles. They belong here. Delton got on his tiptoes to point out the spot on the shelf where his shoes belonged. I piled them up on top of each other for added effect. Well, Delton, rolling onto my stomach, I let my head hang over the side. You are something. I'm not sure what, but can we get down to business now? Just one question about the shoes. If you were my mom, would this make you angry? That's the only square foot in this room that looks normal, Delton. You're a kid. I see it as a sign of hope. Now, where are you hiding all those bugs? Bring them on. I've mastered the deep breathing stuff. To demonstrate my mastery, I puffed out my belly and blew. Delton sat down at his computer and typed in his password. Go slower, more controlled. When I use the biofeedback machine in Mrs. Denon's office, I get the best reading when I breathe slowly. Slow. Got it. I huffed slower. My knees are great right now. Very relaxed. Half closing my eyes, I checked in with a few other places. There's some tension in my fishing arm, but that's because I ought to be on the dock at Riverside Park instead of lying with my head over the side of your bed. The PowerPoint's ready. Delton swiveled around in his chair to face me. But just to clarify about the shoes. Delton, if you want me to teach you how to annoy your parents, I can do that. I practically have an advanced degree in annoyance and obfuscation. But earlier today, you promised to cure me. I go first. My brain was pulsing with blood. I flopped on the floor to redistribute. Delton, is everything okay? Delton's mom was knocking on the door. Tell her you're giving yourself a tattoo, I whispered. Then to be polite, I gestured, down there. I'm giving myself a tattoo, just an erasable ink, but it's Down there. Down where? Delton, you have a lady present. I drew my finger across my throat. Silence would be the best way to send Mrs. Bean to the moon without a spaceship. But of course, Delton wouldn't cooperate. Cassidy's not looking. She's meditating. I knew your room was an inappropriate place for the two of you to study. I told Arthur that, and he didn't believe me. Arthur? Arthur! I assume Arthur's your dad, I said after her voice disappeared down the hall. Delton nodded. Wow, you are really good at that. Polishing my knuckles on my shirt, I responded, Yes, I am, Mr. Bean. I might be a little better at that than you are at sucking up to Miss Melton Mowry. If only we got graded for driving parents crazy. Sigh. Okay, I'm ready to go to work. Here, Delton rolled a stool out of his closet and had me sit on it. We'll start with pleasant associations. The first picture that came up was of a big field and at the top of a hill a frisbee golf basket. Is that a Mach 10? Not sure, but check in with your body. Is your heart beating a little faster? I leaned in closer. Sure it is. I would love to play that course. It's important to understand that adrenaline works both ways. It can be generated because you are afraid and you can run away, or because you are excited. Let's bring you back to home base. Breathe. Home base. Cool. I like the sports metaphors. I took a deep breath and looked at the screen one more time. Sorry, this is just making me want to cut class and go play frisbee, Delton. The next slide was a picture of a pill bug, all curled up. I took a few loud breaths to show Delton I was still mellow. Without all those waving legs, it wasn't hard to look at. So, of course, the next picture was a pill bug on its back with all those waving legs. Latching onto Delton's shoulder, I squeezed hard. Ouch, Cassidy, sit down and breathe. Mrs. Denon says, return to your body. I'd rather return to home base. I let go of Delton's shoulder and started checking in with my body parts, anything to stop the image of that bug on its back, struggling. The screen went blank. I thought we might need a break after this one, Delton said. Do you want some water? Delton handed me a water bottle, and I took a couple of swigs. Do you mind if I ask why, Cassidy? Why does that scare you? Pill bugs don't bite. I don't know. Wiping my mouth with the back of my hand, I set the bottle down. Why do audiences scare you? They don't bite either. I don't know either. I think they upset me because I feel vulnerable, exposed. Yeah, well, maybe that's why I don't like watching bug squirms. It feels like it's me who can't turn over. Really? Then you're not so much afraid of them as you are afraid for them. I don't know. Does it make a difference why they give me the creeps? It does, actually. With me, for example, Mrs. Denon tells me that it's okay not to be perfect. When I'm standing in front of the class, I feel like I'm not perfect. Something bad will happen. Like what? Like I'll get a bad grade. I'm living proof you can survive that, Delton. So what bad thing will happen if you see a squirming bug? I thought about it. It's like one of those movies where a man is standing on the sidewalk minding his own business and you see the shadow of something, like an air conditioner, falling. You want to run in and give him a good push so he doesn't get squashed. But it's all happening so fast, so you can't stop it. I rubbed my eyes to get rid of the image. Do you always keep your house so cold? I asked, hugging myself. Your blood rushed from your extremities to your heart when you hit the panic button, Delton said. I have a sweater if you want it. No thanks. Delton sat back, making his office chair squeak. All this time, I thought you were afraid. Honestly, I couldn't see why it made any difference, but Delton seemed happy about it. Okay, I said, I'm ready. Let's try again. The next slide was of a girl fishing off a dock. She'd caught something. Her line was tight. I knew the next minute there'd be a fish struggling on the line. Slow breathing is tougher than it sounds. I tried counting. 1 potato, 2 potato. Ugh! I screamed as Delton switched to a slide of a worm squirming on a hook. Delton Bean! Running over to the bed, I jumped on it and covered my eyes. I counted through a whole bag of potatoes before I opened them again, only to see a tall man in a vest standing in front of me. Are you all right, young lady? Sorry to interrupt, Delton. The screams drew me in. That's all right, Dad. We're looking at an escalating slideshow of Cassidy's irrational fears. Dr. Bean pulled up the stool I'd just left empty and sat down on it. The smell of pipe tobacco filled the room. Is this some new fad I have yet to read about? No, I'm just showing her what Mrs. Denon taught me so that she can apply transfer of knowledge to her reaction when she sees bugs. When I was a kid, we spent summer evenings trading baseball cards and playing hide and seek. Let's go back to the good old days. I jumped up and stuck out my hand, anything to get that vision out of my head. Nice to meet you, Dr. Bean. And you, Cassidy, your reputation precedes you. That's usually how it works. So you're the one who's been charged with infusing some spirit into Delton. I guess. Mr. Bean pulled a toothpick out of his pocket and stuck it in the corner of his mouth. But first, bugs, pipe smoke, toothpicks. Maybe there was hope for Delton. Well, I don't want to interrupt. It's been very nice to meet you, Miss Cassidy. I wish you luck with both challenges. Dr. Bean closed the door on his way out. Delton, there's something I need to show you. Before I decided to bring Livy's letter to Delton's house, I thought over the oath I'd taken. She might not keep her promises, but I did. I decided since I was not revealing the Chipmunk Code or anything written in the Chipmunk Code, it didn't matter that Delton was a boy. I met this girl, and then she went to camp, and now she wants to write letters in code. That sounds intriguing. Crazy making is more like it. She gave me a code to memorize, and then she sent me this. I pulled the letter out of my pocket and smoothed the paper on the desk. This is not the code she had me memorize. Why would she do something like that, Delton? Delton put his face close to the paper, studying it. There are several possible explanations for this, Cassidy, but first a question. How well does she know you? I thought for a minute. She knows I have a sister who's addicted to mold. She knows I like hobos. She knows... Does she know you like pranks? Because that's the most likely explanation. She's pulling a prank on you. On me? Nobody pulls pranks on me. Well, you could call it by some other name, but I'm betting she's sitting on her bunk bed at camp right now, busting a gut, as you say, thinking about you trying to read this letter. Are you serious? Because if it's true, that stinks. In fact, it stinks so bad. What was it Bree said when Magda let her smell the bottle of sulfur? That stinks bad enough to knock a dog off a meat wagon. I spent time on my free Saturday memorizing that stupid code. The whole idea of being pranked made me so annoyed I had to get some airtime on Delton's bed just to release the tension. Cassidy, it's not a good... I'm just helping you rebel, Delton, by making wrinkles. After a full 60 seconds of bouncing the way Livy taught me, I landed in a sitting position to catch my breath. You know what, Delton? I said, still huffing. What Livy doesn't realize is that I have a secret weapon. A secret weapon? Yes, right here in this room. My secret weapon is your giant head. Me? My... Delton started to get that look he gets when we're putting on our choir robes for the Christmas concert. Yes, I need your brains, Einstein. Is this gibberish or is it a code? I jumped up from the bed, took his head in my hands, and turned it back to the page. Study. It does seem to conform to a certain pattern, clearly some sort of monoalphabetic substitution. Delton scanned the letter, talking to himself like he does when solving ninth grade algebra problems while the rest of us work on graphing and tables. Finally, he looked up at me. It will take me a while to crack it. That Livy has a lot of nerve. Do you know Donna Parker said I reminded her of Livy? I can't think why. It's probably because we're both mercurial, I told him. I'm not familiar with that. Mercurial? Really? I use it all the time. It means we change our mind. Mercurial. Delton typed the word into his computer. According to the internet, mercurial means volatile, temperamental, unpredictable, erratic, moody, impulsive, excitable. With all that volatility, I'm not sure you and your new friend should be in the same room, Cassidy. Those aren't good words, Delton. Are you saying, I wondered, was my dad saying, do I annoy people as much as Livy is annoying me right now? Well, I haven't met Livy yet, but from the evidence you presented and what I know about you after 5 years in elementary school, it is a workable hypothesis. End of chapter 21.